Breaking news from the Las Vegas Raiders. They're facing a major setback as one of their star players, Christian Wilkins, is out due to surgery. He suffered a Jones fracture in his foot during Sunday's game and will likely be sidelined for 6 to 10 weeks, which is the usual recovery time for this type of injury. This is a huge blow for the Raiders, especially on defense. We'll talk more about this, and also dive into some positive news about Michael Mayer. Lastly, there's an update on Davante Adams, but it's not as big of a deal. Let's jump right in. According to Ian Rappaport, Raiders defensive tackle Christian Wilkins is out indefinitely after surgery on his Jones fracture. Wilkins, one of the Raiders' big money signings, will likely be placed on injured reserve, IR, which is a tough hit for the team's defense. Now let's unpack how this happened. Wilkins had his foot wrapped heading into the game against the Denver Broncos, so it seems like something was already bothering him. It's unclear if his foot was fractured before, but he did manage to get a sack during the game. Some people believe the fracture might have occurred after this play when teammate Adam Butler accidentally jumped on him during the celebration. Wilkins played 2 more snaps after that, but it was clear he was limping and struggling. It's still just speculation whether Butler's celebration caused the injury, but what's certain is that this injury is a big setback for the Raiders. Their defensive line, which was supposed to be one of the best in the NFL, is now missing 2 of its key players. Malcolm Koonce is already out with a torn ACL, and now Wilkins is facing weeks off the field. This loss hurts because Wilkins has been an absolute star for the Raiders, even if the stats don't show it. If you watch the tape, you'll see how impactful he's been. Adam Butler, who's been fantastic this season, will step up in Wilkins' absence. Other players like Tyree Wilson, Clelin Ferrell, and Charles Snowden will also need to play bigger roles, but it's still going to be a challenge for the defense to perform at the same level. Now on to some good news. Tight end Michael Mayer, who's been out due to personal reasons, might be back soon. A source on Twitter mentioned that Mayer is dealing with a personal issue that has come up before, but it's not football related. I'm just glad this isn't a trade request because Mayer has the potential to be a great tight end for the Raiders. Hopefully, everything works out for him, and he's back on the field soon. Now let's talk about Michael Mayer and why it doesn't seem like he's requesting a trade. It's important to note that no one, not even reporters like Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport, has mentioned any trade request from Mayer. Typically, when a player asks for a trade, they still stay with the team, attending practices and games, so they don't get fined or appear as a problem to other teams. Mayer is a talented tight end, and if he wanted out, several teams would be interested in trading for him. The fact that he hasn't been traded yet also suggests this is more about a personal matter than a trade. For the Raiders, this could actually be positive news. It means Mayer is likely to return, and with Davante Adams possibly leaving, Mayer could see more targets. He's already been playing in about 55% of the snaps, but his role will probably increase. Even though Brock Bowers has stepped up recently, especially in the slot and at wide receiver, Mayer's return would still be a big boost for the team. I'm hopeful that Mayer will come back soon, and when he does, he'll make a big impact for the Raiders. Moving on, let's talk about the Steelers and how some of their key injuries might benefit the Raiders. The Pittsburgh Steelers are missing a few important players: Cordarrelle Patterson, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, and Jaylen Warren, among others. While I'm not sure about a couple of those guys, the big names like Herbig and Highsmith being out could help the Raiders' offense. Nick Herbig is a rising star on defense, and though he's only in his second year, he's been a standout, making big plays when he's on the field. He had a fantastic game against the Cowboys, causing all sorts of problems for their offense. Without Herbig and Highsmith, the Raiders' offensive line should have an easier time, but they still have to deal with the likes of T.J. Watt, who's always a threat. Pittsburgh also has 2 key offensive players, Patterson and Warren, who are likely out, which should give the Raiders a better chance to win this game. Now let's wrap things up with some talk about Davante Adams. There's a rumor circulating that Jets head coach Robert Saleh wasn't in favor of trading for Adams, which might have played a role in him being fired. The Jets have struggled on offense despite having a top 5 defense, and they don't have a true number 1 wide receiver. Garrett Wilson is good, but he's not quite that top-tier player who can handle double teams. Because of this, it's possible the Jets and Raiders could work out a trade for Adams in the coming days. We'll have to keep an eye on that situation. According to the latest reports, the New York Jets are now the front-runners in trade talks with the Raiders for Davante Adams. It makes sense. Everything depends on the contract and compensation. If the Raiders want a second-round pick, they'll have to take on $30 million in dead cap space. If they settle for a third-round pick, they'll transfer $20 million of that cap hit to the Jets. So it all comes down to agreeing on the terms. Robert Saleh's firing from the Jets could actually speed up this deal. But some are wondering if the Raiders should also move on from Antonio Pierce. Honestly, I don't think Pierce is the biggest problem right now. Injuries have been a key issue for the Raiders. We've lost key players like Malcolm Kuntz, and even our left tackle came into the season banged up. Plus, other injuries across the roster have impacted the team's performance. So while people are questioning Pierce, I think the struggles are more about injuries, inconsistent quarterback play, and some coaching issues, none of which are entirely Pierce's fault. As for Davante Adams, Jay Glazer recently added more context to his trade request. If you remember, on September 30th, Antonio Pierce liked some Instagram posts. The next morning, on October 1st, Adams said on the Kay Adams podcast that he hadn't spoken to Pierce about it, which seemed odd. But according to Glazer, Adams actually told Pierce the night before that he wanted to be traded. So the timeline suggests Adams was frustrated much earlier than it appeared. It seems like Adams's trade request might have been brewing for a while. After the Raiders lost to the Panthers, Pierce reportedly called out some players, including Adams, and told them they wouldn't be playing in the first quarter of the next game. That might have been the tipping point. I believe Adams had already asked for a trade before the game against the Browns, and once that information leaked, the trade rumors started flying. The first report came out around September 29th, possibly from someone with the Jets or another team like the 49ers. That's when Pierce liked the post, and everything snowballed from there. In any case, I'm okay with the Raiders moving on from Adams. As we look ahead, I think the team is in a good spot to grow. This season isn't over yet. If we go on a 3 or 4 game win streak, things could turn around fast. There's plenty of football left, and you never know. Aiden O'Connell could step up and surprise everyone. Let me know what you guys think. Give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time with another update.